Good afternoon. Welcome to Women Connecting with Women, a monthly networking opportunity for women leaders. Women Connecting with Women is provided through the same partnership between USA Kansas and the Kansas Association of School Boards that launched the first Women's Leadership Summit in 2020. And while in 2019, and while our 2020 summit had to be canceled due to the pandemic, we are planning to host the 2021 Kansas Women Leadership Summit this coming spring. This monthly series is a result of the evaluations we received following the 2019 summit, where attendees were specific about wanting more networking opportunities for women leaders. The format that will follow with Women Connecting Women is that we will feature each month a successful woman leader who will briefly share their leadership journey, answer a few questions from our facilitators, and then respond to questions from the attendees. We'll ask you to enter questions you might have for our speakers in the chat box, and then we'll pose those as time allows. We want to be respectful of your time as well as those of our speakers. I'm Sue Givens. I'm a state field specialist in leadership services with the Kansas Association of School Board, and my partner in crime and the person who will introduce today's speaker is...
I'm Leah Fleiter, and I am Director of Governmental Relations for the Kansas Association of School Boards. It's our honor to have with us today as our first special guest on this series, the 48th Governor of Kansas, Governor Laura Kelly. Welcome, Governor. Thank you for being here. And would you like to make any opening remarks?
I sure would, and thank you, Leah. Sue, good to see you. And I saw some other folks I know as the screens were popping up. Just going to give a shout out to Denise O'Day, who I've known from her days when she was in Wamego. Good afternoon, everybody. It is great to be here with this distinguished group of Kansas leaders to kick off your monthly Women to Women series. I want to thank the Kansas Association of School Boards and the United School Administrators of Kansas for putting this series together and inviting me to participate. It's an excellent opportunity.
I didn't. I'm trying to unmute her.
Okay.
Sorry.
Are we good?
Yes.
We think so.
Okay. All right. I don't like Zoom meetings either. So anyway, I'll just repeat what I think nobody heard. I want to thank the Kansas Association of School Boards and the United School Administrators of Kansas for putting this series together and inviting me to participate. It's an excellent opportunity for women leaders in Kansas to connect, learn from each other, and foster meaningful relationships with other smart, talented individuals in our state. Before I begin, I want to thank each of you who are on this Zoom for your incredible hard work and dedication over the past several months. As superintendents, principals, school board members, or any other leadership role you may have in our state's education system, all of you have been presented with unimaginable challenges since this pandemic began. But you have faced these challenges fearlessly. You continue to do everything you can to protect the health and safety of your students, your teachers, and your staff. And I commend you for your efforts. Now, I can't say I'm surprised at how well you have met these new challenges. Exceptional women leaders in Kansas are nothing new. In 2020 in particular, as we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, we remember some of the courageous women who fought for us and our right to vote. We remember Clarina Nichols. She was a journalist and a women's rights advocate who lobbied Kansas legislators at the state's final constitutional convention to ensure that women had the right to vote in school district elections, the right to own property, and the right to custody of their own children. We remember when in Argonia, Kansas, in 1887, they elected Susanna Salter, the first female mayor in the nation. In that same year, Syracuse, Kansas filled all 5 seats on the city council with women, also a first. I think that now, 100 years later, we must reflect on and draw inspiration from the tireless work of the women who fought the odds and created change, particularly as we navigate the worst public health crisis in a century. While the pandemic and the past several months have brought immense challenges, it has also made clear what we've known all along. Despite being historically excluded from leadership positions, women are natural-born leaders. We see that in the countries and states with women at the helm, which have had far better outcomes in their COVID-19 responses. We see that in the number of highly skilled, qualified females, Kansans who are running for office, including Barbara Bollier for U.S. Senate, and Michelle De La Isla and Sharice Davids for the U.S. House. We see that in the fantastic women whom I brought into my cabinet: Administration Secretary D'Angela Burns-Wallace, Transportation Secretary Julie Lorenz, and Secretary Laura Howard, who runs both the Department of Children and Families and the Department of Aging and Disability Services. And we see that in the women participating in this very series, who are taking proactive steps to network, grow relationships, and learn to be effective leaders in our state and our communities. There is no doubt that the pandemic has changed much of our lives, but I've found that I always fall back on the tried and true leadership skills that I've always practiced as I lead our state through this crisis. From the very beginning of my career in politics, I realized how important it was to collaborate. You know, I entered college as a math major, so I do know how to count. When I was first elected, there were 8 Democrats and 32 Republicans in the Senate. You'll recall I am a Democrat. I knew if I wanted to get anything done, I had to work across the aisle, negotiate, and collaborate to promote good policy for the people of Kansas. It's how I always operated as a senator and how I continue to work as governor. For me, the pandemic also emphasized the importance of surrounding myself with smart, qualified individuals who could act as my trusted advisors as we navigate this crisis. One of the hallmarks of good leadership is knowing what you don't know and finding people who do. Consult with experts, consult with other teachers, administrators, community members, students, and anyone else you feel deserves a say during your decision-making process. Only by seeking out factual information can you be sure that you're making the decisions that are right for your schools. Before we get into the question and answer portion of this afternoon's program, I'd like to close by saying that genuinely great leadership is never easy. Ultimately, throughout these tumultuous months, I have been reminded that being a leader means making the tough and often unpopular decisions. It's about collaboration, reaching compromises with those who are different than you. It's about seeking out input from people from different walks of life and with diverse perspectives on the issues that matter. And it's about never losing sight of the reasons why you chose to accept the challenge of being a leader in the first place. So today, this workshop is a perfect opportunity to start building or build up your network of other successful women who can support one another and create opportunities for one another. Finally, I would encourage all of us to empower the women in our lives and nurture the next generation of women leaders. Together, we can do so much to make our state and our world a better place. Thank you. And now I'd be happy to stand or sit for some questions.
Governor, thank you so much. And you've already given us some great leadership tips, but we wanted to ask you if there are some unique leadership lessons that you've learned over these past very challenging 6 months.
Well, actually, there are. I don't know if I learned them or I've just had to exercise them again, or I've been reminded of them. But I think, you know, one of the reasons that we have seen women really handle this COVID-19 pandemic in a way that's been more fruitful than some of our male counterparts is because we are not only natural-born leaders, but natural-born collaborators. Clearly the states that are having the most success, the countries that are having the most success are those places where the leaders are listening to the scientists and letting the scientists and the experts in public health really drive the strategies. You know, it's where we have others who are allowing things like politics, which really is not healthy anyway, you know, drive health decisions. So I think that's been really emphasized to me during this, is how important it is as a leader to recognize what it is you need to know to be able to lead, and where you can get that information. So that's probably what I have seen most from all of this, is that need to be out there, be willing to make the tough decisions, put up with the flack that comes with those tough decisions, and not back down. You know, stick to your guns when you know it's the right thing to do, even if you've got a lot of loud voices telling you they want something else done.
Thank you, Governor. Wonderful advice. Could you tell us a little bit about what your support system is as a female leader?
Good bottle of wine.
It's universal.
You know, again, I'm going to go back to relying on those around you. You know, the best support that I have really comes from the staff that I have, that I carefully selected, you know, whether it is those who are actually in the governor's office and around me on a day in and day out basis, or those that I put into positions throughout all of our agencies, whether we're talking about, you know, our adjutant general down with the National Guard and emergency management, or Dr. Norman leading our KDHE, our health and environment, and our public health system, you know, or my Secretary of Administration, you know, or Secretary Lorenz, who we double tasked with not only the Department of Transportation, but we've now got her over running the Office of Recovery and really being the one to manage all of the federal funding that's come in and get it out to our communities to help people. So it's again, you know, just putting the right people in and then relying on them to do the job that they can do and they were hired to do.
We have a good question from Mindy Sanders from Abilene in the chat. She's a principal there. She wanted to know, what has been one of your proudest moments as a leader?
Well, it would really have to be signing the school finance bill last year. You know, we had fought for a very long time to adequately fund and fairly fund our school system. It took us well over a decade to be able to advance that, and to be able to get that done in my first year as governor. You know, to both fund our schools after, you know, having been through the tax experiment that so devastated our economy. Being able to do that, to keep a promise that I had made to people of Kansas, was probably my proudest moment.
Governor Kelly, you talked about the importance of your leadership team, and one of our participants has asked the question, how did you decide whom to add to that team?
You know, it was from the very get-go. I mean, if I can think back to one of the reasons I didn't want to run for governor, and there were many, one of them was that I knew how bad the situation was in this state. You know, the tax experiment that you all are very familiar with really did decimate this state. Our agencies were gutted out, and they could not function. And I was very concerned about taking on the leadership role when I knew that it's something I couldn't do myself. And I was worried because so much of the good leadership in our agencies had left for a whole host of reasons over the past 8 years. And so I was just concerned about how we could actually do this, how I could actually fix Kansas when it was so broken and we had lost so many good folks. I was just very fortunate that when I won, so many really good people, many of whom I've already mentioned, stepped up and were willing to come back to Kansas, to come back to agencies, and use their expertise and talents to run those agencies. And they've all been doing it in an incredible way. And I think the other thing that was really important is that I didn't care who they were. I didn't care what party they were. I didn't care whether they'd worked on my campaign or not worked on my campaign or worked on the other person's campaign. I really didn't, or worked for the other person. I didn't really care. What I cared about was whether or not they had the skill set and the motivation to get the job done. That's how people were hired. Had everything to do with their ability and their passion for helping me put the state back together again.
I'll jump in with a question from a school board member. Many of us are getting pressure from families to move away from the advice of medical experts to get children back in our classrooms full time. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this and what advice you'd have for school board members as we are trying to balance priorities between giving our kids the best educational experience possible and protecting public health.
Well, I think there was no harder decision I had to make than the one I made last March to shut down our school buildings for the rest of the school year. You know, I mean, it's been a long time, but I've had school-age children, and so I knew that was going to be really hard, not only for the kids themselves, but for the parents. And for the teachers. And so it was with great reluctance that I pulled the switch on that and just said, we've got to do it. It's the safe thing to do. So I understand the desire to get kids back into school full time and get life back somewhat to normal. And I appreciate actually the work that our school districts have done. You know, I tried to provide statewide leadership because I believe that this should be a whole of state response. Clearly the State Board of Education decided they wanted to do this differently and let it happen on a district by district basis. And that's okay, because I think even the approach we would have taken would have been to respect what the State Board of Education staff had put together, along with 1,000 teachers and administrators in that incredible continuous learning program they put together for August, which allowed for multiple different approaches, whether it's in class, hybrid, the hybrid approach, or all online. So I just want to offer my support, that I understand what a big struggle it is, but that to hang tough, you've got to make the decisions that first and foremost protect the health of Kansans. Because if we don't do that, then not only will our schools not be open for hybrid learning, they won't be open at all. We'll let this virus take over again, and we'll have to shut them completely. Same with our businesses. If right now businesses are up and operating, not necessarily at the capacity they want in the manner they want, but everybody's able to have their doors open now if they choose. That won't be the case if we don't manage this virus and manage it well. So while I know it's tough, I just ask people to hang tight, let science dictate what we do. Let's work together and get this virus well under control as we possibly can, and hang in there until the vaccine comes and can really make this something that we can function in a much more normal way.
The stress of those courageous decisions are at every level for leaders across the state of Kansas, right, and especially for women leaders who tend to be able to have a more emotional response just physiologically. And so we know that's important. Now you're talking to a whole group of educators, so this next question will not surprise you. This person is curious about what book you are currently reading, or some of your favorites, leadership or not.
Well, let's see. I am listening on my audiobook when I walk. I'm listening to The Gentleman from Moscow, which is a fascinating and fun read. I also, on my nightstand, have The Great Influenza, which I'm reading like a real book. And I've actually just about finished that one. And I picked that one up specifically to give me a perspective on what we're going through now and what to expect, from the virus itself, but maybe even more so from people, how people are going to react, and what we need to do in order to help them all get through this. So those are the two I am reading, and I think I've got. Actually, I'll tell you the truth. I did read Mary Trump's book on her uncle. It was fascinating.
The next question is about young women who are just entering into leadership during the pandemic. What advice would you have for them?
Would you repeat that question?
Yes. What advice do you offer to young women just entering into leadership during these times, during the pandemic?
Latch on to an older woman, who has whom you admire. I mean, the reason you admire her is because she demonstrates probably the qualities and characteristics that you hope that you will or do at this point. So I think really setting yourself up with a mentor is a very, very good idea. But also to recognize that it's a two-way street, that, in any relationship, whether it's mentor or mentee, that, your mentor has things to learn from you too. And so, be open and honest with her and hope that she'll do the same for you as you sort of navigate the leadership path together.
Who were your mentors?
Well, I really wanted it to be Mickey Mantle. That was my childhood dream, was to replace Mickey Mantle in center field for the New York Yankees. I can't tell you how disappointed I was when I was about 8 and realized that wasn't going to happen. And only because I was a girl, not because I couldn't bat that well. But, I think if I look at people who mentored me, it really were, oftentimes it was my boss. I can remember when I was 17, I went up to New York to work at a camp for kids from the city. And the camp director there was just this incredible woman, so smart and just so gifted at understanding these kids and what it was we needed to be doing to help them. And so, and as I think, down the line in my career, it has often been a female boss I had, or politically, I can't deny that, living next door to Kathleen Sebelius for 20 years, I gained a lot from that.
This next question is related again to the stress and the emotions that are really running high right now. In the arena where we lead, the education of children, emotions are running very high on all sides. Whether we have students back in the buildings or continue remote learning, parents are concerned about the physical and mental health of their children, and they often send us messages that are emotionally charged. How do you keep focused on making good decisions when people are sometimes literally yelling all around you? I'm sure you've experienced that.
Literally yelling all around me, yes, or on a phone more often now, nowadays. I think the ability to focus like that really does come from my earlier life. I just told you about the camp director. That was my very first real job after high school. And I was working with kids who weren't diagnosed emotionally disturbed, but were coming up from New York City where things were really hot. It was a very tense time, a lot of civil rights issues going on then. You remember Martin Luther King was killed, Robert Kennedy was killed, we had Vietnam going on. It was a very hot time in our society. And so the kids were really agitated, to say the least. And so, I started my career, working with these adolescent, troubled kids. So there's probably no name in the book I haven't been called at some point. There's no argument I haven't heard. And in order to be able to help them, I had to listen to them and then help them get through it, and then we could talk. And I think that I pretty much operate the same way now, is that I know, particularly in politics, when you're in a leadership position and you're making decisions, some people are going to like it, some people are not. You're going to hear from those who don't like it, much more than you will from those who do like it. And so I sort of just go ahead and let them vent. I need to hear what they have to say. Sometimes they may have something to say that will change how I operate. But I need to let them get that sort of off their chest, and then we need to talk and hopefully come to some, even if it's an agree to disagree. But we need to do that. In your teachers' cases, though, working with parents, that's tougher. I would say it's really, really hard because your teachers are going through some of the same emotions, and so they're really having to dig deep into a reservoir of patience and compassion. So I hope they're taking good care of themselves because they need to.
Such sound advice. One of the pieces of advice that we give boards of education when we do trainings is that their primary job, they have 3 primary jobs: listen, ask, and listen some more. So really, really good guidance. This next question is, outside of Mickey Mantle, who was the person in your life that led to your decision to become a leader, and how can we in turn encourage other women to become leaders?
I mean, I don't mean to keep harping back on Mickey Mantle, but I really did learn as a young girl that if I, as a girl, was going to have any say in what happened, I had to push myself out there, and I had to take charge in certain situations, or I would be left behind. And so it really was from a very early age that I realized that girls were treated differently, and I didn't want to be treated differently. I wanted to be treated the same. I wanted to be on that level playing field. And so I just sort of put myself there. I also will tell you that it was probably when I was in college, which was quite a long time ago, I read a book called Games Mother Never Taught Me. And part of it was about how girls are brought up with different expectations. And one of the examples that they used was that, when kids are picking teams for whatever the game might be, that boys will tend to say, well, you're the best first baseman, so I'll pick you, and they pick their team that way. Whereas girls, I think less so now because girls are able to do organized sports that we weren't able to do way back then. But I think even somewhat now, we let this get in our way, that girls would tend to pick people, I like you, so come on my team, and so they end up losing because they didn't pick the most highly skilled people. So, we were our own worst enemy in many ways. So I learned a lot from just, being notified at 8 that I was not going to be a New York Yankee. And then again, when I read that book and realized how subtle it all is. And here I am.
You've talked about the importance of working with...
I got the one more question.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. You do have one more question. So how will you how can we continue to encourage other women to become leaders? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I think we could get back to the mentoring. We are all in positions of promoting other women. I am doing it. Again, she has to be qualified for the position. But if I have an opportunity to put a woman in a high-level position or on an important board or commission of some sort, I will take that opportunity. Now she has to be as qualified as any of the male candidates. But if all is said and done, and she is as qualified, then I do feel it my responsibility to give that opportunity to a woman. As I do for people of color, or LGBTQ, all the entities that have sort of been kept from the power table, if they've got what it takes, then I do feel like it's my obligation, not only to them, but to society as a whole, to promote and allow them to lead.
You talked earlier about the importance of working with Democrats as well as Republicans. Are we getting close to a close?
The governor's staff is asking.
They're asking us to end.
Yes.
All right, then.
They booked me tightly.
That's all right. We'll take some. Do you have some closing comments that you'd like to make? Anything in summary that you'd give as guidance to the 111, 105 people that are still listening?
Well, it's hard on Zoom to tell you all how much I already appreciate who you are and what you do. I mean, the fact that you're at this seminar, very much suggests that you're already a leader. You're just here to bolster those skills and make more connections, and I think that's terrific. I would just ask that as you build your own leadership network, that you reach out and that you bring others in, because there's power in numbers. So the more of us there are, the more powerful we'll be. And I personally think that that's a good thing, because I think women leaders are empathetic, are thoughtful, and can really lead in a way that's respectful and inclusive of all. And that's what we need.
Thank you so much, Governor, for joining us today. We appreciate your leadership.
Thank you, Leah. Sue, good to see you again. Tell Bruce I said hello.
I will, thank you.
Okay.
While we let the governor lead, Leah and I just want to thank everyone for joining us for this first session. We want the time to be valuable, and so you are going to receive a request to complete an evaluation. It will be emailed to you shortly after this event concludes. We really want you to fill those out. We want to make each session applicable to you. We want you to be able to network and grow as a leader, and we want you to be able to feel that you have a community of women that support you. Our next Women Connecting Women, if I can share my screen, I will see if I have that capability. I should be able to. Our next Women Connecting with Women is scheduled for Tuesday, October 27th at 12 noon. And you can look for registration information and also information about our next featured speaker within the next couple of weeks being released. With that, we want you to go have a fabulous remainder of your day, and we hope to see you back here in October. Thank you.